Hello, how are you? Again, another video for you. I hope all of you are doing okay. Such a pleasure to be here. So let's start without any delay. Treasures from God's Word, spiritual gems. Deuteronomy chapter 17, verse 7. Deuteronomy chapter 17, verse 7. It says, the hand of the witnesses first of all should come upon him to put him to death, and the hand of all the people afterward, and you must clear out what is bad from your midst. Why did the law require that the witnesses to a wrongdoing be the first to stone the guilty one? I don't really like talking about violence, and this is a clear example of violence and injustice, as the one witnessing the wrongdoing is required to tell others what he saw, knowing in advance that it will be punishment rather than rehab. The punishment given in the Old Testament, the Hebrew scriptures, is made by a psychopath mind, and I definitely would never agree on that. Let's move on. What spiritual gems from this week's Bible reading would you like to share regarding God, the field ministry, or something else? Deuteronomy chapter 16, verse 19. Let's read what it has to say. It says, you must not pervert judgment. You must not be partial or accept a bribe. For the bribe blinds the eyes of wise ones and distorts the words of righteous ones. Was it the judges' arrangements similar to what we have now? Do we find the judges' arrangement in the Hebrew scriptures, in the Greek scriptures, sorry? We would see this theme in a talk later, but I asked you that question. The judges were appointed over Israel in that time because they require a judicial system. That judicial system judged not only the sins, but also the crimes. So there was no difference at all. So it was a complete judge. What we have nowadays in the 21st century is judges ruling over criminal activity only. Criminal activity. In some religions, we have that some people there inside those religions believe that they can be judges over other humans. The only judge of our sins that we have in the 21st century is Jesus, not any other human. Who is perfect to judge another human being? Who is perfect? Nobody. So no judges of sins we have now. Only judges for crimes. Let's move on. Deuteronomy chapter 17, verse 14 to 15. It says, when you eventually come into the land that Jehovah your God is giving you, and you have taken possession of it, and have dwelt in it, and you have said, let me set a king over myself, like all the nations who are round about me, You should without fail set over yourself a king whom Jehovah your God will choose from among your brothers. You should set a king over yourself. You will not be allowed to put over yourself a foreigner who is not your brother. Here, we can see a prophecy that later will be fulfilled, specifically in the Bible book of Samuel. But God knew that they will eventually ask a king in the future. If God is aware of what they will eventually ask, why he got surprised in the book of Samuel for the Israelites asking a king? I can clearly remember one Bible verse that it says, "It is not you whom they have rejected as king, but it's me, Jehovah, whom they have rejected as king." But he has said in Deuteronomy that that would eventually happen. Why he's saying that they are rejecting him in Samuel? Another interesting point made here is that no foreigner can be president in your country. Yeah, and I must say that I learned the lesson. But sometimes when people are stubborn, I need to use persuasion. Yeah, sometimes people don't listen, don't learn, don't want to learn. They are stubborn. They really are stubborn. So if people are stubborn, then you are required to use persuasion. Persuasion. Okay? Another Bible verse that I learned a lot from Deuteronomy chapter 17, verse 17 to 20. It says, "He should also not multiply wives for himself, that his heart may not turn aside, nor should he increase silver and gold for himself very much. And it must occur that when he takes his seat on the throne of his kingdom, he must write in a book for himself a copy of this law, from that which is in the charge of the priests, the Levites, and it must continue with him, and he must read it in all the days of his life, in order that he may learn to fear Jehovah his God, so as to keep all the words of this law and these regulations by doing them, that his heart may not exalt itself above his brothers, and that he may turn aside from the commandment to the right or to the left, in order that he may lengthen his days upon his kingdom, he and his sons in the midst of Israel." Several lessons can be learned here. The question arises, what about Gedeon in the book of Judges? Hebrew names, I'm going to read them in Spanish when I'm not sure. Okay, first, we learned from verse 17 that Solomon didn't apply this, not to have many wives. It seems that Solomon and this person, Gedeon, they really love the pleasures of life, to have several wives. Solomon had around 300 women at his disposal because he was king over Israel. And this man Gideon has 70 70 women at his disposal. So imagine having 70 women at your disposal. If they're African or Asian, just imagine. Also in verse 18, it was required that the king, the future king, because chapter 17 is mainly talking about a future king that the Israelites will have, is telling that the person that should be in charge of Israel should have his own copy of the scriptures. Remember that in those days, they didn't have binding, perhaps binding they don't have printers that we have that we have nowadays. So they were required to make their own copies, handwritten, and always follow what is written in them, following the law of Moses. It appeared King Saul, King David, and King Solomon, they disobeyed this commandment. If you read the history of those three kings of Israel, you would realize that they failed utterly to comply with the law. Deuteronomy chapter 18, verse 10 to 12. 10 to 12, it says, "There should not be found in you anyone who makes his son or his daughter pass through the fire, anyone who employs divination, a practicer of magic, or anyone who looks for omens, or a sorcerer, or one who binds others with spell, or anyone who consults a spirit medium, or a professional foreteller of events, or anyone who inquires of the dead. For everybody doing these things is something detestable to Jehovah. And on account of these detestable things, Jehovah your God is driving them away from you, from before you." These Bible verses are repeated in the New Testament, the Greek scriptures. Therefore, because of this, we should heed the commandment. Everything that is written in the Greek scriptures, the New Testament, we are required to follow. Okay? If something is written in the Old Testament, the Hebrew scriptures, and is repeated again in the Greek scriptures, in the New Testament, if a commandment is repeated in both testaments, of course you need to follow it. But if something is written in the Old Testament and not repeated in the Greek scriptures, sorry, the procedure is no longer valid. This is the correct way to interpret and follow the scriptures, not to choose what is convenient for you. I must say that nowadays we have a fight to our curiosity for the future. Since 1919, we are waiting for the Armageddon, but still nothing. I say this because I remember that 20 years ago, my mother used to have a business, a restaurant. One day, my mother arrived to the business in the morning, and she found that robbers broke in and they steal the restaurant. So the reaction of my mother was deep sadness and uncertainty for the future. So she got this idea of going to a fortune teller. So she directly disobeyed this command. So that's why I said it is a fight to control our curiosity for the future. Every time we purchase the newspapers or watch TV and there is a fortune teller speaking to us, sometimes we just want to know what the future will hold because we keep on waiting till Armageddon comes, or at least a sign, and it's not yet here. Since 1919, how many people have died? Another Bible verse of my personal investigation, Deuteronomy chapter 18, verse 20 to 22. It says, however, the prophet who presumes to speak in my name a word that I have not commanded him to speak, or who speaks in the name of other gods, that prophet must die. And in case you should say in your heart, how shall we know the word that Jehovah has not spoken? When the prophet speaks in the name of Jehovah, and the word does not occur or come true, that is the word that Jehovah didn't speak. With presumptuousness, the prophet spoke it. You must not get frightened at him. We have here verses that destroy all religions, meaning more than 100 years ago in their foundation. All religions except in the Catholic Church and the Islam, at least to my knowledge, have predicted wrongly the end of the world in different dates in the 21st century. So in these verses, we are told not to fear those religions. I've got a video that I invite you to watch, but it's in Spanish. Please, by all means, check all the videos in the channel and you would get to know the dates that some religions have predicted the end of the world. So after watching that video, or you can do a Google search and you would find that. Reading this Deuteronomy chapter 18, you would know not to fear those religions at all. Some may say, oh, but religions do their job. They are like dogs guarding your house. And when the moment you hear the dog barking, you're not going to kill the dog because nobody happens to be there. The dog is doing the job. Well, if the dog is barking and wakes me up in the middle of the night, what I will do is to verify if there is someone there. And if there is no one there, okay, I would go again to bed. But if after a short period of time, the dog barks again, I would get furious because a robber is not going to be 2 times the same night there in my house to rob. No way. So that is the time that I would just be mad with my dog for waking me up in the middle of the night 2 times the same night. Okay, let's move on. Apply yourself to the field ministry. Talk theme. Does the Christian congregation have judges? Interesting question. So you can let me know in the comments below. What do you think about this question? Does the Christian congregation have judges? Do we need judges, spiritual judges that judge over things, not crimes? I made that differentiation between so-called spiritual judges, and the judges that they judge criminal activity. I make that differentiation. And this question is talking about spiritual judges. While having no secular authority as a court, may take action against disorderly members who require spiritual discipline, and it can even expel them from the congregation. Oh, yeah. Therefore, the Apostle Paul tells the congregation that they, that is, the representative members thereof, those having oversight, must judge those inside the organization. And they dare to put a Bible verse here. 1 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 12 to 13. For what do I have to do with judging those outside? Do you not judge those inside, while God judges those outside? Remove the wicked man from among yourselves. Okay, let's go little by little. There is a video about this. Unfortunately, that video is in Spanish. It's called Excomunión. It's in my channel and you can search for it. The trouble with that video is that it is 3 hours. But I consider it worth it to have 3 hours discussing the theme of this theme. It's a long topic. But don't worry if it is in Spanish. You can write what is showed in the screen and you can check it by yourself. There's the Bible verses. But talking about this Bible verse, 1 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 12 to 13. For me, and I think for the majority of people, Paul is talking about gossiping here, gossiping in the congregation. Why? Because people, when they gossip, they believe that they are judges over others. They forget that they are human beings. They are imperfect too. That is why Paul is saying, while you still judge those inside as gossiping, you are gossipers. And we have other Bible verses talking about gossiping in the congregation. Old women in the congregation gossiping against members. Yes, so this is a misinterpretation from religions to say that, oh yes, we need to have judgment inside the congregation. It says, remove the wicked man from among yourself. Okay, so who is the wicked man? Who is the wicked man? What is the definition of wicked in the scriptures? First, define what is wicked. Then we can come to an agreement. If you want to remove the wicked man, okay, first define it. What is the wicked? Okay, I'm going to check. Yeah, I have already checked the scripture, and by all means, please let me know in the comments what you think. It's saying here, while having no may take again action disorderly members. Spiritual discipline. Define what is spiritual discipline. Define it. Because to me, spiritual discipline is something that you give to your brother or sister using the scriptures and keep on telling them, please don't do this, please don't do that. Look what it says here, look what it says that. Spiritual discipline. Expel them from the congregation. Oh, really? Who give you the right to expel members from the congregation in the first place? Who give you the authority? If we have only one judge, who is that judge? Jesus Christ. He's the only judge because he can read hearts. Nobody, no human can read the heart of another human. So just use reasoning. Who are you to judge your brother? It's wrong. Why you are talking about expelling something from the, who are you? This is a misapplication of 1 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 12 to 13. Perhaps you may say, okay, but first verse 13 says, remove the wicked one. Okay, define wicked. Wicked man, define wicked man. And then you can tell me. Because I doubt that we have wicked men in the congregation. I doubt it. Let's continue reading. In writing to the congregations and to overseers, both Paul and Peter point out that the elders should keep a close watch on the congregation's spiritual condition and should assist and admonish anyone who is taking an unwise or wrong step. And they quote 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 2. Preach the word, be at it urgently in favorable season, in troublesome season, reproof, reprimand, exhort, with all long-suffering and art of teaching. Yes, it says reproof. Does it say spell? Does it says disfellowship? It's just saying reproof. Where is the word disfellowship? Where is the word expel? Where is the word shunning? I don't see it there. First Peter chapter 5, verse 1 to 2. Therefore, to the older men among you, I give this exhortation, for I too am an older man, with them and a witness of the sufferings of the Christ, a sharer even of the glory that is to be revealed. Shepherd the flock of God in your care, not under compulsion, but willingly, neither for love of dishonest gain, but eagerly. Okay. Does the word shepherd means discipline? For example, if a shepherd loses a sheep in the field and he finds that sheep wounded, very far away, hungry, what is the shepherd going to do? He's going to judge the sheep. He's going to say, why you do such stupid things, that you are wounded and you are hungry? Why you stupidly go for something that damaged you, for something that hurts you? Did the shepherd do that to the lost sheep? The shepherd is quick to bring the lost sheep with the other sheep, with the 99 sheep. So you can understand. And while he is with the 100 sheep, he's taking care of the wounded sheep. He's not judging the sheep. He's not telling, oh, idiot sheep, take some slaps, blah, blah. Why you did that? Is the shepherd going to do that to the lost sheep? Okay. Sometimes we learn from animals. Galatians chapter 6, verse 1. It says, brothers, even though a man takes some false step before he is aware of it, you who have spiritual qualification, try to readjust such a man in a spirit of mildness, as you each keep an eye on yourself, for fear you also may be tempted. Let me ask you a question, and I finish with this, because the simple answer is no. We don't have judges in the Christian congregation. Judges for our sins, we don't have. It's different to have a judge, and it's different to have a healer. Okay? We have a healer because everyone is going to tell me, oh, what about James? Go and look for the elders. The elders are not going to judge you. The elders are going to anoint you with oil and pray with you. They are not going to judge you. They are going to help you. They are going to give you a spiritual rehab, not judgment. Okay? Galatians chapter 6, it says something interesting here. Try to readjust. Readjust. What does it mean to readjust? To give punishment? To give judgment? To expel a person? To disfellowship an individual? Is that to readjust? Don't confuse readjust with destruction, because you can destroy a person for judging it, or him, judging him, sorry. So you have in the screen what people normally argue, normally answer to judges in the congregation. So I give you the answer to all of that. So I hope I helped you with that, to reason, to have critical thinking. You can take note of the screen. Living as Christians. Could you serve as a regular pioneer? Discussion by the service overseer. Let's say Proverbs chapter 10, verse 22. Proverbs 10, 22. Let's see what it has to say. It is the blessing of Jehovah. That is what makes rich, and he adds no pain with it. Okay. By pioneering, you can gain skills as an evangelizer and enjoy the ministry more. Besides, you can strengthen your relationship with God. The more you talk about Him to others, the more you talk about, oh, I made a mistake here, the more you will be reminded of His own spiritual qualities. I didn't know that you needed to spend more time in the ministry in order to be more skillful. Then why do we have meetings in the congregation if by pioneering we are going to have skills by practice? Many are going to tell me by practice. What if someone practice, but doesn't have enough theory, enough congregation meetings, or enough publication reading? What will happen? I tell you because there was a time when I used to be outside of my house the whole day, 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the evening. I'm talking about 15 years ago. 15 years ago, I was spending my time like that. And I can tell you from experience, um, that it's true. You become skillful, but sometimes it is not good enough. You need the congregation, you need Christian congregation meetings. I didn't know that going in the ministry more, you get strength in your relationship with God. What about people who just cannot spend as much time as a regular pioneer, 70 hours a day, a month? What about that? What about people in hospital? Oh yes, they preach to nurses and doctors. Yes, but are they able to do 70 hours just in hospital? But I doubt these two these two reasons given here. Some mistake here. Broken computer. Okay. Congregation Bible Study. Pure worship of Jehovah, restored at last. Chapter 11. I have appointed you as a watchman. Ezekiel chapter 33, verse 7. Ezekiel, where is it? Ezekiel chapter 33, verse 7. Now, as regards you, O Son of Man, a watchman is what I have made you to the house of Israel. And at my mouth you must hear the word, and I give them warning from me. Focus. God commissions a watchman and outlines his responsibility. Paragraphs 1 to 8. So we are going to see that. Question 1. Describe what God's prophetic watchmen have been doing and the events that follow. A watchman stands on the walls of Jerusalem, shielding his eyes at the. Remember that Jerusalem in those times were a city with big walls. Every wall has its own guardian. That guardian was a watchman standing there, shielding his eyes. At what? As the sun sets, he skews the horizon. What's the meaning of that word? To search very carefully and thoroughly through an area, a document, etc. So this man was paying attention, careful attention of the sun setting down. Suddenly, he raises his trumpet, fills his lungs, and sounds a warning. The Babylonian army is coming. Nevertheless, it's too late for the apathetic inhabitants of the city to act on this blast from the watchman's horn. For decades, Jehovah's appointed watchmen or prophets have been sounding a warning that this day would arrive. Now the Babylonian army surrounds the city. After a siege of many months, soldiers burst through the city walls, level the temple, and slaughter or capture the faithless, idolatrous inhabitants of Jerusalem. That is the answer of the question. Next question. Question for paragraphs 2 and 3. What situation are the inhabitants of the earth facing today? B. What questions will we consider? Since 1919, God's executional forces are marching toward a confrontation with the faithless inhabitants of the earth. Revelation chapter 17, verse 12 to 14. It says, and the 10 horns that you saw mean 10 kings who have not yet received a kingdom, but they do receive authority as kings 1 hour with the wild beast. These have one thought, and so they give their power and authority to the wild beast. This will battle with the Lamb, but because he is Lord of lords and King of kings, the Lamb will conquer them. Also those called and chosen and faithful with him will do so. As I said, since 1919, we are waiting to that long march. I imagine myself being in that army marching for more than 100 years. I would get a skeleton marching and marching like the song of the White Stripes, Seven Nation Army. Watch it. Marching like that. 100 years. Ooh, give me a break. 100 years waiting for that. The clash will be the culmination of the greatest tribulation in human history. Or really, let's read Matthew chapter 24, verse 21. It says, for then there will be great tribulation such as has not occurred since the world's beginning until now. No, nor will occur again. What tribulation that would be? Nevertheless, it's not too late for many to respond to the warning sounded by those whom God has appointed to do the work of a watchman. Really? Who are those? You must warn them from me. Okay, this is another subtitle. Of course, we are waiting since 1919, 100 years. I think never would be too late. Or if not never, several years. In a video, we can see someone saying this. We are living definitely in the final parts of the final parts of the final parts of the final parts of the last day of the last day of the last day. Several times. I've been hearing that since 2009. More than 10 years I've been hearing that. 10 years? 10 years? People have been hearing that since 1919. But we are going to analyze, you must warn them from me. Okay. Question 4. Why did God appoint watchmen? Watchmen served as tangible evidence that the ruler of the city cared for his subjects. Although a blast from a watchman's horn might startle the sleeping resident, that same piercing call could save the lives of those who respond to it. Similarly, God appointed watchmen not because he wanted to terrorize with messages of doom, but because he cared for his people and wanted to save lives. Ezekiel chapter 33, verse 7. Now, as regards you, O Son of Man, a watchman is what I have made you to the house of Israel. And at my mouth you must hear the word and give them warning from me. Yes, we are required. So let's move on. Paragraphs 5 to 6. The question is, what is one way in which God's justice is evident? Justice. Although Ezekiel's message was heard and rejected by large crowds, God didn't treat all the Israelites as a rebellious mob. Rather, he wanted to see how individuals responded. Ezekiel chapter 33, verse 8. It says, When I say to someone wicked, when I say to someone wicked, oh wicked one, you will positively die. But you actually don't speak out to warn the wicked one from his way. He himself, as a wicked one, will die in his own error, but his blood I shall ask back at your own hand. But as regards you, in case you actually want someone wicked from his way, for him to turn back from it, but he actually does not turn back from his way, he himself will die in his own error, whereas you yourself will certainly deliver your own soul. 18 to 20, it says, when someone righteous turns back from his righteousness and actually does injustice, he must also die for them. And when someone wicked turns back from his wickedness and actually carries on justice and righteousness, it will be on account of them that he himself will keep living. And you people have said, the way of Jehovah is not adjusted right. It will be each one according to his ways, that I shall judge you, O house of Israel. Okay, we have the answer there. 7. On what basis does God judge people? It's interesting that in the same meeting, we have judges that pretend to be appointed by God to be judges, and God being the only judge. That's why I repeat myself. The only judge for our sins is God and Jesus as well. Nobody else. No human can judge other because of sins. No human. You cannot see the heart. Individuals are held accountable not for what they did in the past, but for how they respond to the current warning. Ezekiel chapter 33, verse 14 to 16. Let's read. And when I say to the wicked one, you will positively die, and he actually turns back from his sin and carries on justice and righteousness, and the wicked one returns the very thing pledged, pays back the very things taken by robbery, and actually walks in the very status of life by not doing injustice, he will positively keep living. He will not die. None of his sins with which he has sinned will be remembered against him. Justice and righteousness are what he has carried on. He will positively keep living. On the other hand, those who follow a righteous path can expect past obedience to excuse current rebellion. 13. I think I read it. When I say to the righteous one, you will positively keep living, and he himself actually trusts in his own righteousness and does injustice, all his own righteous acts will not be remembered, but for his own injustice that he has done, for this he will die. What do the prophetic warnings teach us about God's justice? Ezekiel began his work some 6 years before the Babylonian army destroyed Jerusalem. Jeremiah chapter 6, verse 17. Let's read what it has to say. And I raised up over you people, watchmen, pay attention to the sound of the horn. But they keep saying, we are not going to pay attention. That's wrong. That's wrong. I can tell you straightforward. If someone comes kindly to you to try to readjust your thinking, you should be grateful for that fact. For example, I can have my differences with people, but if they come to me and they make me reason, of course I'm going to listen. In my case, but we have stubborn people in this world. That stubborn people, it's a problem, not me. I am the most open-minded individual that you have ever meet in your life. That is why I all the time say, please dislike the video if you don't like it and leave a comment. The only thing that I require is respect. You can say all that you want, but with respect. Respectful comments only. You can include in the comments conspiracy theories, whatever you want. I would be glad to read all your comments. So this is all about this video. I've got 2 failures in the video. I don't know, I got viruses here. I need to repair this. So first it was my mobile phone, now the laptop. Oh my God. I'm so worried. Anyway, thank you for your time. Thank you for making this far to the video. I hope you enjoy it. Please subscribe if you haven't done so. And I'll be looking forward to read your comments. Have a nice day. Bye.